offensive free agents and what they're going to cost next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Rate the podcast 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports. Joining me, as always, to break down the top offensive free agents, Mr. Johnny PayPal. PayPal, how you doing, my friend?
Doing pretty good, Brad. Doing pretty good. Yeah, the snow's coming in, so that nice. We're nice and bundled up in in our podcast studios, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I mean, we were talking before where I'm so excited after like the combine and everything of the draft. Like I'm just like, why can't the draft be like next week or something, or really like this weekend?
Oh yeah,
because I got the fever for the draft because this is my first year really actually diving deep into the draft and kind of caring about it a lot.
Yeah, we were talking about it pre-show. Like, I always love the draft. It's around my birthday, and we celebrate the draft. We don't celebrate my birthday. Like, that's
Yeah.
what we do. Like, because I love it. It's a weekend, and yeah, and I'm so happy. I was so proud when you said that you love the draft and you're excited for it because that's how it is, right? Because
Oh yeah.
you understand all the players that are going on, and then you have your guys, and we'll be breaking that down after free agency, right? Because free agency, I kind of wish that they would do the draft first and then free agency, just so I know, at least from a show schedule, it's easy because then your brain's so focused on the draft and then you got free agency. Like, free agency starting up. So next week, it's beginning. They're going to have the legal tampering period. So that's why today we're going to be breaking down the top free agents. And also we're going to be tearing out the potential cost for these free agents as well. Because we have a lot of money, we're going to be talking about where that money can be spent and taking some of the numbers from some of the cap experts out there so that we can kind of see a realistic expectation for what people might be expecting from a cap number. So, offenses today, and let's start out with the running back position. And also, I got to say too, PayPal, I don't know if you saw, Kari Blasingame, 2-year deal.
Yes.
2-year deal. Let's go.
I was so excited because funny thing, I mean, part of my take, I always endorse him. I feel like on this podcast, only listen to us. Don't listen to any other podcast. But they interviewed Ryan Poles and Coach Eberflus, and they're talking about like fullbacks, and they were on the conversation of how like the Bears are one of the only teams that use fullbacks and how they love using their fullback.
Yeah.
And something that's just very interesting to me is like Eberflus really mentioned how helpful and like it is having a fullback that can go out in the passing game, which I was like, that completely fit, like understands why we have Blasingame is because he's kind of like a receiving fullback, but he can also block really well.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I like him out there. He clearly has a role in this offense. And yeah, 2-year deal. It's cheap. He's a good player. I love it. So we will not be covering the fullback position. So I know I'm sorry to disappoint the fullback fans out there because we got our fullback. But let's go over to the running backs. Now, the running backs, we talked about this, like 4 months ago, when we broke down our top 5 fits, and we're like, this running back class is loaded. It's going to be crazy. Jones is gone. Or Josh Jacobs just got franchise tagged. Saquon got franchise tagged, and missing another one too. Like all the top ones got franchise tagged.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, and now what we're seeing is David Montgomery. He's going to be a free agent. He's now one of the top ones. Some people do have Miles Sanders over him. So PayPal, we're going to play a little game called Sign or Deny, and I'm going to give you who people consider the top, putting it in air quotes for those that can't see me, the top running back. I would rather take David Montgomery, but Miles Sanders is projected to get 3 years at $7.5 million per year. Are you signing him or are you denying him?
Yeah, Brad, I'm gonna deny. I mean, he is a good running back. I do like Miles Sanders. It's one of those things, and you kind of said it. Like, I would rather have Dave Montgomery just because he's been on the team. We know he brings that culture. We know how much he means to the city of Chicago, and I think that adds a value to him. While Miles Sanders is good, I kind of like his running style better than Dave Montgomery, though. Like, he is kind of that. He just runs up there and he doesn't try to just break tackles like Dave Montgomery that we saw, where he only gets 3 to 5 yards. Miles Sanders kind of has that more Khalil Herbert where he runs forward and he's a little more quick.
I see what you mean, but yeah, I'm so anti Miles Sanders. Like, if
Yeah.
you're gonna spend money on a running back, bring back Monty. Like,
Yeah, I agree.
Monty does everything, yeah. So that's why we're both saying deny Miles Sanders. But let's look at the other running backs. So I tiered this. So we on the graphics, we tiered this thing out. So there's no high priced running backs. There's just
Mhm.
kind of mid-tier so far. These numbers are also from PFF, from Brad Spielberger, who is like the cap expert out there, and also from Spot Rack. I was kind of grabbing some of these and then throwing them together. So this mid-tier from about 5 million to 10 million, you're seeing per year. That's Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Deontay Foreman, Jamal Williams, and then kind of the bargain bins. I should have actually named that on the graphic instead. The bargains are Damian Harris at less than 5 million, Jerick McKinnon, Alexander Madison, Raheem Mostert, Devin Singletary, Kareem Hunt, Jeff Wilson, Rashad Penny, and Samaje P. Ryan.
Mm.
So I want to also ask the chat out there too, do any of these names really jump out to you? PayPal, does a name jump out to you
Hey,
on this list?
hey, Brad, this is the guy. He was my ride or die in Madden. You know, anyone that the Johnny PayPal name where it all started playing Madden. I gotta go with my boy Raheem Mostert. He's a very fast runner. He's a dynamic player. He can get a 60-yard touchdown just solely on his speed. He is getting up there in age, and that's something honestly I kinda like. He's a veteran in the room. He can he can teach Herbert. He can help, which I honestly think we will. I think we will draft a running back, whether that's probably later in the draft, like 4th or 5th round. But I think it'd be nice having that veteran, cheap option. He is kind of injury prone, which is kind of that worry. But if we can get him cheap enough where when he does play, he's explosive. And when he's not playing, he can help out the younger running back room.
I like that. And someone that kind of sticks out to me because I'm looking at the bargains, right? And if we were to go for like the mid-level contracts, it's like, why not go with David Montgomery? Currently, at this point, 3-9 at 7:37 p.m., all the rumors have been pointing that the Bears are not going to be re-signing David Montgomery. So
Mm.
we'll see. They're rumors for a reason, right? It will switch and go back and forth. But I'm looking at the bargain bin. I'm gonna go bargain bin shopping. I think that overall, though, the Bears need another running back, and then they can always draft a running back too. And I like going
Mhm.
after the bargain. I brought this up on before when we had the top free agents during the season, and I still like Jerick McKinnon as that third down guy. I think that
Mhm.
that really rounds things out. He's only projected to get, let me just pull that number up real quick. He's less than 5 million and he's projected to get about maybe 2 years, 3 million a year. That's not
Mm.
that bad for someone that can really a veteran in the room and somebody that can pass block and also catch. But someone else that really kind of jumps out is Kareem Hunt. I couldn't believe
Yeah.
his age. He's 27. Like, I thought he was
Oh
30,
my gosh.
right? He's 27. Kareem Hunt is 27. He's been a good running back. He had an amazing line in front of him in Cleveland, but I do think that the Bears also have a phenomenal run blocking line. I think Kareem Hunt, he's got the Kansas City connection. He's projected to get 2 years, $4 million a year. I think that that's a pretty low bargain bin deal that can be a good complement to a Khalil Herbert, and you can draft someone, and it's only 2 years with Kareem Hunt. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And this is kind of like if we really want to go really bargain, I honestly don't mind Samaje Perine. He was kind of someone like he was a third down back. He's just going to be in there for passing downs, for just blocking and passing. If we really want to go the cheap route, he doesn't do anything bad, but he's not fantastic. So I could maybe see them do that. He would be a cheap sign. Yeah, kind of get an older guy in the room type of thing. Um, but again, I think I'm with you, Brad, where I kind of like either getting David Montgomery or just draft a running back, you know?
Yeah. And it looks like Steve is saying Bears made an offer to Monty, but are allowing him to feel the market. So we'll see. We'll see what he ends up doing. I really like P. Ryan. I think that that's a really good option. And yeah, 2 years, 2.5 million is his projected salary. That's
Mhm.
phenomenal for somebody that really kind of came into his own as a third down running
Yeah.
back. So
Yeah. Hey, and a fun fact about him, he has not fumbled since his rookie season, which was like 4 or 5 years ago.
oh wow.
So he's just the definition of like he's not gonna do anything crazy, but he just does his job, which I like a lot.
J-Rock likes Damian Harris. He's saying roll tide. That's Damian Harris. I had him on my fantasy team a couple times. Not when he was bad, but like when he was actually halfway decent and like a late round pick. I gotta throw that out there. Jamal Williams would be fun too. I know that he's we have him out there too. J-Rock was mentioning him.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams is just a national treasure. Like
Yeah, he is.
he's just such a funny guy, just an interesting guy. I like
Oh,
for real,
loves
I would get a press
Naruto.
pass. I would literally get a press pass and drive down just to be like, okay, he's going to be there. I have to talk to the guy. I got to interview him only for that. Like, he's just such an interesting guy, such a fun guy. Love it.
Yeah.
But let's go
Yeah.
to probably what everybody wants to hear, the wide receivers. And wide receivers, there's a lot of wide receivers out there, but kind of the consensus number one wide receiver out there is the former, or most likely the former wide receiver from the Patriots, Jacoby Myers. He's projected a 4-year, $16 million a year deal. So PayPal at $16 million, and the, the people out in the chat, are you signing or are you denying Jacoby Myers for $16 million a year?
Man, that's hard for it's hard, you know, I think people always think of he's kind of like a small receiver. Like he's really not that small. I mean, he's six
6'2".
two,
Yeah.
6'2", like 200 pounds. So he definitely can be a number one receiver. Um, I mean, if we're not drafting a receiver like in the first round, aka getting like Jackson Smith Jigba, I mean, I say we get Jacoby Myers. Like if they're like, we're not going to get a receiver, we're going to get like, you know, Will Anderson, or we're going to get a defender. With that first round pick, get Jacoby Myers. That's how I am, because we have the money to spend for him, and I want to. We need to spend in, you know, the position groups that we need the most, like receiver, offensive line, defensive line. So $16 million for a position that we desperately need, I say go for it. If we're not drafting my boy Jackson Smith.
Yeah, exactly. I echo that too. And honestly, I was going to be quick and just shut down Jacoby Myers. But Jacoby Myers is interesting though. I'm looking at the PFF stats. He was the 27th best graded, the highest graded wide receiver, then 2 years ago 33rd, then 3 years ago 25th. So he's been good. I think my only issue with Jacoby Myers is that he's never been considered a number one, really. And I know that
Mhm.
no one ever is like, oh, Patriots, they have weapons. Everyone looks to their tight ends. People look at Hunter Henry. People don't really mention Jacoby Myers. So does that mean that he's disrespected? Or does that mean that he's just not that good? And
Mhm.
yeah, and I think at 16, it's a little interesting, but obviously he's top of the market. But some of the other top of the market wide receivers, there's not a lot out there. That's why we broke down the wide receivers. It's really done through trades. Keenan Allen also got restructured, kind of felt that that was going to happen. But the top wide receivers, the ones that are making over $10 million in the high mark, Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster is projected to get 12 million, Odell Beckham Jr., Michael Thomas, even it's more projected as a 1 year, $12.5 million deal. And DJ Chark even is going to be kind of that borderline $10 million a year. And then if we go down to the mid level, we have Alan Lazard, who's probably same thing like Chark, just a little bit lower. Then you have Paris Campbell at about 7.75, Nicole Hartman at 7.5, might even reach up to that 10 area, and Darius Slayton. But then if we go to the bargain bins, Robert Woods is probably high-end bargain bin. Like,
Mhm.
you were talking bougie Goodwill here. And then you got Jarvis Landry, Julio Jones, Alameda Zacchaeus. He might even be more in that mid-range. Sterling Shepard, Marvin Jones Jr., Mac Hollins, Randall Cobb, Trent Sherfield, and Nelson Aguilar. PayPal, does anybody stand out to you, or are you kind of like, we're either going one or we're going home?
Hey, I'm surprised Alan Lazard is in the mid five. He should be in the less than 1 million. But but no, all jokes aside, like I don't mind Lazard. He's one of those guys. He would do well. He's just someone I wouldn't be excited if we got, honestly. Like he's a guy who just does his job. I I think on the one guy that really surprised, like I would get excited for is Robert Woods, especially if we're able to get him $5 million or less. Just another veteran guy that could add to this room. Um, and kind of like he's that trusty receiver that Justin Fields needs. I mean, we look at like there's like Julio Jones, there's Mac Hollins, who he was looking actually pretty good last year. But those are kind of those big body receivers. They're not the but they won't get the most separation. Um, but Robert Woods is someone that I think Justin Fields would really enjoy throwing to and kind of get that connection with them.
Yeah, this everyone in the comments, it's like, yeah, this is hard.
Yeah.
And I like what Gambit's saying. I think we have to wait till next year to get our number one. It's that is like real talk right there. Like that's what's
Oh
so
yeah.
hard is because everybody we need a number one, but yeah, like there's not a number one. I agree with Gambit with this because it's so hard. Yeah, we might have to get like those multiple number twos. It's so hard to find someone out here in this. Yeah, Robert Woods would be interesting. He is going to be 31 years old, but to your defense too, I'm just looking at the grades. He got a 68 grade last year, 55th best wide receiver. That's not bad. And for someone
Mhm.
that you can pick up in the bargain bin, so to speak, that's really not that bad.
Hey, I'm thinking like and honestly, it sounds weird saying Robert Woods would be this, but like honestly, like a third or fourth receiver. Like if we're hoping Claypool pans out, we're hoping he's that number two. Mooney kind of we found out that I don't think he's ever going to be that number one, unfortunately. Um and that's yeah, we just need that number one to fill. So if we could have like a Robert Woods kind of as that depth piece in the wide receiver room, I think that would be nice.
I'm curious too if you even get him like do you not get him some of the guarantees as well? Like I do get nervous and I'm kind of with New Harper a little bit too. It's like I'm nervous about Robert Woods a little bit just
Mhm.
because yeah, he has been banged up. He hasn't been the same since the ACL tear. Uh but yeah, I think too when you look at this group, it's just hard because you you want to it's like if you could guarantee that we would have the ninth pick in the draft, right? And it seemed, I think I saw that the Panthers are actually the favorite, like the betting favorite by far
Hmm.
to get the number one pick and draft in the number one spot. If you do that, you get Smith and Jigba, right?
Yeah.
I think now Smith and Jigba is actually being seen as the number one wide receiver. So
Wow.
that's where I'm kind of that's where I'm kind of like leaning towards. If you can trade down, maybe you can then get one of these wide receivers.
I that's exactly where I'm at. That's where I feel like I'm trying to be like, oh, like maybe we could get this guy, and that's the thing that's hard is just
Yeah.
all these guys were amazing back in the, they're all big names like Odell, Michael Thomas, DJ Chark was insane. Like I remember in fantasy, you had your baby DJ Chark,
Yeah, yeah.
that
Yeah,
yeah,
baby
the
Chark.
baby Chark, yeah. But all these guys are big names, but they're old now and they're not as efficient as they were. So I'm totally about drafting a receiver number one, and I really hope they do.
Yeah, I think, and everyone in the chat too. Yeah, we're like, I think the hardest part is when you're looking through this, I'm trying to find like, oh, I'd be happy if they signed this guy. I think that's ultimately where this isn't good.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this isn't good. And I've said this and I haven't gotten my report out there yet. You can draft good wide receivers in the second. And
Mhm.
of majority of Pro Bowl wide receivers don't come in the first round. And that's like, it's because the wide receiver group is so deep. So there can be some good number twos. I mean, good second round wide receivers that we get if we don't get Jackson Smith and Jigba, even though I really, really want them to get them.
Mhm.
And so I think it all depends on what we can do in the draft and who we can get as well. We've also talked
Mhm.
a lot about the draft. We'll break it down later, but yeah, honestly, a lot of these wide receivers, I'm just not feeling. I think
Yeah.
it's all too much. It's all
They're all
we don't
depth
have
pieces.
anything.
They're all
Yeah,
depth pieces, you're not gonna start one of these guys.
you're taking a flyer and you're paying definitely a premium. But let's move on to maybe we could get a tight end instead. Another tight end piece to bring it out. But let's see the tight ends. The number one tight end out there right now is going to be Dalton Schultz. 4
Mhm.
years at about $14.5 million a year. So already there, you're having a discount. You're having a discount rather than that number one. PayPal, chat, are you signing or denying Dalton Schultz at $14.5 million?
Yeah, Brad. I'm kind of on the edge of not signing him for that much. For a tight end, I think we should be all on the same page of we have our number one tight end at this point. I mean, Cole Kmet kind of proved, he kind of blew up near the end of the season, really looked confident catching the ball because he had the drops for 2 years. He could not catch a ball for like 2 years straight. He's finally got that confidence and looked actually pretty darn good. Um, Schultz, I mean, yeah, to pay that much for him. And two, Brett, hey, we'll get the draft again. There's actually some decent tight ends that we could get,
This is true.
first, second, third round. Um, and one that catches my eye that is a free agent is Hayden Hurst. He's someone that we can pay a little less for, but someone that I always liked. He seems like he's kind of that path. He can catch the ball, but he's more of a run blocking tight end. Um, Kind of that guy like I was talking about before with Samaje Perine, where he just kind of does his job. He's not too flashy. He has a 2.6% drop rate, which is the third lowest of tight ends. So he just gets his job done.
Okay. And see, yeah. You don't even have me going through my bargain bin yet, but yeah, I agree with you though with I agree with you though with Dalton Schultz. Like, for real, like, I don't think we need those guys. The high priced, right? The 10 plus million. Mike Gesicki might get that. He's projected about 11 million a year. Dalton Schultz, like we said, 14 and a half. But yeah, Hayden Hurst is down in the mid tier, about 5 to 10 million, projected about 8.5. Austin Hooper at about 8.5 as well. Foster Moreau, the backup, at about 7, and Robert Tanyan kind of around that $5 million. And then
Mhm.
down in the bargain bin, Irv Smith Jr., Mercedes Lewis. He's probably about he's 39. He's going to be 39 years old. And Josh
Jeez.
Oliver out of Baltimore, who really who was pretty decent out there. But yeah, I agree with you. I would personally like to see a tight end. I'm seeing some Darnell Washington out there. That would be nuts. But yeah, I think that with tight end though, you can how I would kind of do it is you kind of sign similar to like Ryan Griffin, right? You have that veteran that's the backup that can play decent. I still think that Robert Tonyan would be great. He
I
knows the
agree.
system. If you can get him maybe a little bit cheaper since he knows the offensive scheme at like about $4 or $5 million for a good solid backup tight end for 2 years, and then you draft a tight end that can kind of develop. I really
Mhm.
like I really like Robert Tonyan, and you steal him from the Packers, and and this
Perfect.
is a Packer offense. So Robert Tonyan to me is someone that for the right price, I think he could be a
Yeah.
really good number 2 tight end for us.
Oh, and he reminds me of, I like now that Komet's actually doing pretty good, and Robert Tonyan, I mean, after that, he had that insane season 2 years ago or something. He's kind of that, that washed or a little like Walmart version Cole Kmet at this point, where I think they're very similar players. They have very similar builds and height and everything. So I just think that'd be good consistency, say for Justin Fields, for someone that I think he's trying to build, his connections with tight ends and throw into the tight ends. So I think it'd be nice having two tight ends that basically look the same physically out there.
Yeah, like and tight ends, there's so many people out there too that yeah, you can acquire, you can get like we said in the draft, there's going to be some good people that the Bears can get as well. That's why we need 10 second round draft picks.
Yes.
10 second. That's what we're going with. We're going with the strategy. We're calling up Ryan Poles. We're saying, Poles, we need 10 second round draft picks and 5 first next year.
Yeah, we just draft our whole offense basically in second round draft picks.
second round draft picks. That's how you build championships right there, ladies and gents. But let's move on to the offensive line. I think offensive line, like we joke about this, the running backs, there's probably not like we might sign some, or the question is going to be more about Monty, right? About the
Mhm.
resigning. Wide receivers, not a lot of good stuff out there. And tight ends don't need a number one tight end. There's actually also, I should have mentioned this too, there's also a lot of rumors out there that the Bears are going to be looking to re-sign Mooney and Komet this offseason because
Mm.
it helps with they have to spend a certain amount of money. It's also better to sign those early. And they seem to really like Mooney and they seem to really like Komet. So you can get them early and then you can stretch that money a little bit more across the life of the deal. That's the way to do it. I think that Poles is going to do that, and there's more hype kind of building around that as well. But yeah, yeah. So let's go with the offensive line. And if you want to be built like an offensive lineman, you can use our show sponsor today, which is Transparent Labs.
Nice, nice,
Transparently. Yeah, you like that? You like
nice.
Transparent Labs? They have pre-workouts, they have creatine, they have everything that you need. Mass builder to get absolutely jacked, absolutely swole, so you could play offensive line for the Chicago Bears. And you could take a hometown discount. But link down in the description, Transparent Labs. I trust them with everything that I do from a gym perspective. I absolutely love them. But then also, you can, if you want to bet, you can use betus.com promo code unbearable for 125% back off of your first deposit. Just use promo code unbearable. You can use that when you get ready for the big dance coming up. But with that, let's get back into the show. Let's get into this offensive lineman and PayPal. There's one guy that there's a lot of rumors flying around, and it's the big left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr. He is the number one tackle coming in. He's also projected to get the highest salary out there. The projection is 5 years, $21 million a year. Are you signing or denying? And I'm really curious what everyone in the chat has to say too. Like, are we for Orlando Brown Jr. or not for Orlando Brown Jr. out there?
Hey, I'm for Orlando Brown. He kind of has like for some reason, he has kind of like an attitude for me. Like I kind of don't like I'm a chemistry guy, Brad. I always like kind of someone that would fit the locker room. Um, but for a position group that we desperately need in, I mean, if he will play at the right tackle spot, um, I think we get anyone at this point, whether it's Orlando Brown or some of the names that we'll be mentioning shortly. But I say go for it.
Really, I'm a hard pass on him.
Really?
I'm a hard pass on him because I think at 21 million that he's kind of asking for, I think that's
Mhm.
way too much. I think that, and
Yeah.
I got a lot of people in the chat. Yeah, we got yeah, it's too much out there. I do. I think that it's way too much. He's a left tackle. Braxton Jones isn't like a god, right? But I think that
Mhm.
Braxton Jones, why not just keep him at left tackle? Don't try and move him around at all. I like
Mhm.
the idea of just kind of keeping him at keep him at left tackle. Orlando Brown requested a trade because he didn't want to play right tackle. And yeah, like you talk about the attitude, I don't love that. Even though that there is the Pulse connection, I'm not in love with that, especially for that price. And also, I didn't think he looked that great at the beginning of the year, looked better later on. Let's go
Mhm.
through some of these guys, the high price ones, the over 10 million. There's a lot. Orlando Brown Jr., Mike McGlinchey, Jawan Taylor. Mike McGlinchey is projected to get 16, Jawan Taylor about 16, Caleb McGarry about 15 million, Isaiah Wynn about 10.5 million. Then if we go down to the mid-level, you have Taylor Lewan at about 7. Same thing about with Donovan Smith, and then Trey Pipkins about 6 million. And then the bargain bins, Kelvin Beachum, Jermaine Illuminor, Cameron Fleming, George Fant, Andrew Wiley, Billy Turner, and Brandon Shell. And PayPal, I'm seeing this out there. My number one guy that I am like, he has to be a Bear. His agent just leaked out that, hey, we think that this guy is going to get a deal immediately. As soon as it opens up, he's signing with someone different
Ooh.
than his current team, and that's Mike McGlinchey. I
Yes.
see
Oh,
Mike
I was
McGlinchey
hoping,
out there.
yes.
I love Mike McGlinchey. For 4 years, $16 million, I will graciously take that $5 million less for someone who wants to play right tackle, someone who's good in an outside zone scheme and has proved that inside of the 49ers system. But the big fear is like he's been off and on with injuries, but to me, he's always been a good starting right tackle. And to me, I think at the price of 16 million, you're really getting what you're signing up for. And that's why to me, I do really like the Mike. I like Mike McGlinchey. I think he's already a Bear, Notre Dame
Mhm.
guy. Like, sign him up.
Gosh, yeah, I really hope that we can get Mike McGlinchey. I mean, he's got everything like you were talking about you know, with the Kyle Shanahan offense, he's got that same sort of offense that we have. Jawan Taylor, I wouldn't mind him. Like he's a phenomenal pass blocker. So I don't think we're gonna have to worry about um, Justin Fields getting sacked too much, but he's not the best run blocker, which kind of is the basis of our offense. So
Yeah.
I think Michael McGlinchey, besides his injuries, like that's the only thing that really draws him back. And I mean, like I was talking about before, of like we have to look at these top end players. I think when we talk about the offensive linemen, where we have to get here, get in free agency and get these big name guys, because this is a position group that we've been lacking for quite a long time.
Yeah, and like it's going to be interesting. And I'm looking at Spot Rack too. Jawan Taylor, they actually have him projected less at 14 million. Same thing with McGlinchey. Renewable saying, hey, McGlinchey can't stay on the field. That is true. He's more of a Jawan Taylor. So Jawan Taylor's also younger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Like Jawan Taylor's more of a pass blocker, which it's like, okay, well, what do you want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jawan Taylor is younger too, though, 25 compared to McGlinchey's 28. I think I'd be more fine with those two. There's been some rumors about Caleb McGarry, very good run blocker, insane run blocker. But the only thing with McGarry, though, I don't know, he's only had really like one true good year.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest fear with him.
Yeah, and two, I really think at a tackle spot, like, yeah, having a good run blocking grade is great, but having that pass blocking grade is really what matters, and that really kind of that's what you do as a tackle. Like guards and your center are more focused on run blocking, and stuff like that. But tackles are on the islands and are really the ones that are protecting your quarterback the most. So
And
yeah.
Taylor at 25 though is really interesting though.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I think to me, I'm just like I'm in between McGlinchey or Taylor. I think that we're all in agreement, right? I think that we are. I think us as a Bears fan group, as a collective, we're all in agreement. Like we need a right tackle. I don't think you go out and try and draft a right tackle, so to speak,
Yeah.
because I think that you're putting so much like they don't like, as far as we know, they don't like Larry Borum. And
Mhm.
I don't think Larry Borum's that bad, but you kind of heard it. They really didn't like him. And
He's a
that's
good
where,
backup.
yeah,
I mean, he's a
phenomenal
fantastic
backup.
backup.
He's a perfect backup. Yeah, he's a swing tackle. He can play left. He can play right. He's good. I like him. But yeah, I think that
As a
overall,
starter. Mm-mm.
you got to sign a starter. And I think you really do. And let's say that Peter Skoronski is on the board, right? The tackle out of Northwestern, put him at guard, right? He's got smaller arms. They were talking about that anyways. Then boom, that offensive line is going to be sick. I think that you definitely need to sign him. That's why I'm not even looking at like I know we brought up Taylor Lewan when he got released,
Yeah.
but yeah, after I heard him talk more on the combine, I was like, dude, the more I hear him talk, the more I'm like, I don't want him on this team. He's
Yeah. Yeah, and he's kind of got the injuries and like he's
yeah.
not as good as he used to be, and he's um yeah, I think he's just in podcast mode now or something.
Donovan Smith, though, oh man, I'm seeing it. He's actually going even higher. This PFF now has him at $11 million a year. Donovan Smith was a very good left tackle until, I mean, people realized that he just started getting penalties all the time. Like nobody gets more penalties than Donovan Smith. It's absolutely insane. I think that you got to go top dollar. It sounds too like the Bears would go top dollar at this offensive line, but I'm glad to see a lot of us down in the comments. Like that's the biggest thing. Orlando Brown Jr. Spot Rack has him at about 22, 23, and PFF has him at about 21. No matter what, you're paying over 20, and if you can get McGlinchey for 15, right, or Jawan Taylor for 15, McGarry even for 15. That's a lot of money that you're saving for still great play and production. Orlando Brown Jr. just to me is not Teron Armstead of last year.
Mhm.
Um, but let's go to the last group. Interior offensive line. Not a sexy position, but a spot that we definitely need help. Also, I got to say this too. Sounds like Sam Mustipher is not going to get the restricted free agent tenor. I,
Oh
you know,
wow.
normally everybody gets that tenor. So Ryan Poles is like, dude, I'm sick of you. Get out of my sight, get out of my room. But it seems like he's not going to get he's not going to slap the tenor on him, which is, like we said, interesting because they normally tag everybody. But let's go through the guards, centers all at once. We clearly kind of need a center, but I kind of go back and forth because, well, Lucas Patrick, if Getsy likes Lucas, he might say, Patrick, you are my center for the future. And there have been some questions about do they actually like Cody Whitehair and I guess too Tevin Jenkins, even though Tevin Jenkins was a freaking animal and like one of the
Mhm.
best guards in the NFL last year. But if the rumors are true that they're not set at maybe like a Cody Whitehair, Isaac Somalu is the top guard, top interior lineman from the Eagles, and he is projected to get about $11 million a year. PayPal, you signing or you denying?
Oh man, that's a hard. I think we do need guards, but yeah, it's like we have white hair, and I honestly didn't think white hair, yeah, didn't perform the best last year. Like he's definitely dropping off a little bit, and maybe because he's playing right next to Sam Mustafar. Who knows? Because you'd probably look bad too if you were playing next to, that type of center. But I'll si- I would sign him. I mean, he's a top guard. If we really don't like Whitehair that much, I would sign him. Um, yeah, he's a good player, good pass blocker, good run blocker. I would sign him.
Okay, and so already in the comments, we're getting a lot of powers and Pochich out there. So let's actually look at some of these contracts. So I actually had to shift around the contracts a little bit. So the high is 8+ million a year. That's Isaac Somalu, like we talked about. Then we also have Ben Powers is in that kind of upper echelon for pay. He's projected to get about $10 million a year. Then you have Dalton Risner, he's projected about 8.25, and Nate Davis from the Tennessee Titans projected to get about 9.5. Then if we go over to the mid tier, you have Nick Gates, you have Ethan Pochich, who's projected to get about $7 million. You have Connor McGovern at about 7.5 as well. Garrett Bradbury, 2, and then you have Bradley Bozeman, a little over $4 million. But now, the very, very low, the bargain bin, less than $4 million. We're talking about Will Hernandez, Nate Herbing, David Edwards, Andre Dillard, Connor McGovern, Justin Pugh, Coleman Shelton. That's a real person, and Jake Brendel. PayPal, who kind of stands out to you out of this list?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to look at. I mean, we really have to look at the centers of like, do we pay Ethan Posich or a Connor McGovern or a Garrett Bradbury, one of those guys, and that's the thing where I wouldn't be surprised that they do stick with like Lucas Patrick, like you're saying. Like you look at those guys, and I don't know how much of an upgrade they would really be from Lucas Patrick that only had one year kind of with that whole group, with the switching offensive line group where it was like he was thrown everywhere. He's kind of guard, then his center, and then he was injured, and then so I don't know if I really am in love with any of these guys. Like Ethan Posich, I think would be a good option, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the big thing is what does, because we already saw them cut Al-Qadim Muhammad. So at least on the defensive side of the ball, we know that they can admit a loss and say, you were my guy, peace out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lucas Patrick couldn't stay healthy. Lucas Patrick also didn't look that great when he was on the field, was a terrible guard, but for like the 10 snaps at center looked decent, but that's 10 snaps out of everything else. He didn't look that good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, we need a center. Do we just try and draft somebody?
Yeah, Michael Schmitz.
Yeah, New Harper said, yeah, best ability is availability. Patrick hasn't shown that he can stay healthy. Like that's, yeah. And Steve saying Lucas was a waste of time. That's kind of how I'm feeling too. And it's like, yeah, do you go with a Pochich at 7 million? Like I look at Pochich and I look at McGovern, both of those guys, or Connor McGovern, because there's a I might have duplicated McGovern on the list.
There's
two Connor McGoverns.
There are two. There are two
Connor McGoverns. Connor McGovern from the Jets at 7.5 million at center. He's 30. That's the only thing that I get nervous about. But Pochich, young, he's gotten better every single year. Looked very good. He was PFF's third best center in the NFL. It's interesting. It's interesting to see what he can do with this offensive line. I like the idea. I'm not a big fan of Bradbury, even though he had a good season. My father-in-law is a Vikings fan, and he can't stand Bradbury. And so I think for me, it's going to be interesting. I think that Pochich would be a potential good signing, but I did hear too that the Bears might be seeing this guy out of the Commanders. Let me pull up his name. He's not even on the list, but I hope that they don't, because it just seems like they're going with another mid guy. If they were to sign him.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Wes Schweitzer out of the Commanders is rumored. The Bears might have eyes for him, but
Huh.
It's like, don't go mid. Don't, or that's mid is a compliment to him. Don't go below mid. Don't go below average again, like what you did with Lucas Patrick. Go with one of the better players. So
And maybe I'm still give Lucas Patrick a chance, but that's the thing. We don't have I don't want another year of being like, oh, like we should just get another center, or like complaining about our offensive line, you know. I just want the offensive line to be like, okay, we got the high, the top center, we got the top tackle and like McGlinchey, you know. I want to just go out for these guys so that we don't have to complain big. Oh my gosh, look how terrible this offensive line is. But with that, I mean, I feel with Lucas Patrick of like he did not play very much at center and he didn't look too bad. But I guess we still need an upgrade.
yeah, I think for me too, someone that I like, and I know that he's not technically bargain bin according to this, but I still like Bradley Bozeman. Bradley Bozeman has been a good, solid center, and you can get him at $4.5 million. Like, bring him in, and I think he's an upgrade over Lucas Patrick. Like, if they don't like Pochich, right? Like, there's a bargain right there. Bradley Bozeman is a better left guard than, or yeah, maybe like similar to Cody Whitehair, but definitely an upgrade at the center position. And you can have him at center, but I do think that the Bears will be drafting people at this interior spot, and hopefully they can take some snaps away and eventually take over the starting spot. But someone that I'm actually also really interested in is David Edwards. Because David Edwards was kind of seen as like a very good guard. Not saying I want the Bears to sign him, but he was a really good guard and just fell off because of injuries last year. And
Mm.
at 2.5 average, it's very low. I'm not saying I want them to sign him, but he's interesting. He's very, very interesting. to say the
Yeah,
least.
yeah. Yeah, like a little backup for Whitehair. Yeah, just have someone out there as a better backup because yeah, anything to help this offensive line, Brad.
Yeah, this offensive line, we'll see what they end up doing. It's like, yeah, this especially will be interesting. Ben Powers, we haven't even talked about really, too. And Ben Powers is kind of a big favorite. Very good pass protector. 86.5 pass blocking grade last year, which was the second amongst guards. Allowed um, allowed 0 sacks and just 1 quarterback hit the entire year. So very good. Very good numbers. PFF's number 31 rated free agent at the guard position. But yeah, Ben Powers has been a solid guard. And if you can get him at about 10 million, I think we brought this up with some players with like, we jokingly said like Jesse Bates, right? If you can get
Mhm.
Jesse Bates cheaper than you can a Eddie Jackson, would Poles do it, right? And I think Ben Powers at $10 million a year at the guard position, you can then just kind of straight up cut Cody Whitehair. And then now you have a younger guard at 26 years old playing for you. I think that
Yeah,
that could be a good strategy for them to just be like, all right, let's bring in this pass blocking guard and let's
yeah.
secure this.
I like that. And something I do like about Ben Powers, I mean, I'm all about big offensive linemen, Brad. I mean, we're talking about I love Tevin Jenkins. I love God, what's his name from Ohio State in the
Yeah,
draft?
Jones.
Joe
Yeah.
Yeah, Jones. He's 6'4", 338 pounds, Ben Powers. So I would love just having this like two guards who are absolute units, and then hopefully we get Dewan Jones if we do draft a tackle. Um, that would just be fun. That's just my dream of just having this huge offensive lineman just protecting Justin Fields.
But for real, like if you honestly just sign Ben Powers and cut Whitehair, boom. Like you
Yeah,
literally just did a cost analysis. And you just got rid of him and you got a better guard, younger guard. You got younger at the position, better at the position, and you cut bait on him. So yeah,
yeah,
there's so many things that you can do, and hopefully we can do something good out there. And this is the big question that I still have for Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles, I love hearing all the awesome mastery that's going on, PayPal. I don't know if you saw, like, Rich Eisen was saying, like, Ryan Poles is a master right now. Like, everything that he's doing, he's put on a master class of what to do in the offseason, like how to kind of drum up interest, how to get everything going, get everybody hyped. Like, he's telling, this could just be a smokescreen, but he's driving up the price by saying, like, listen, if you want a deal done, you got to give me your best offer before free agency starts. So there's a lot of things that are going to be going on this next week, and make sure that you tune in here. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to comment down below what you think the Bears will do on offense if you're out there on YouTube. But also, if you want to listen to the podcast everywhere you go during work, download the podcast everywhere you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.